Greetings, superior beings. Well, excusez-moi. Getting the microphone. Greetings, superior beings. Greetings, supreme being. We are all the human race. Our common enemy is death. This is Try Something.Vegetarian. And I'm 𝓥𝓮𝓰𝓮𝓪𝓼. This is the broadcast Vegetarian Nikola Tesla's Death Ray, a scalar weapon. Because the original title was Vegetarian Nikola Tesla's Death Ray, a scalar weapon to end all wars. But when I tried to paste this in this text in the title section, basically, probably because it's a special font, it doesn't fit if I copy it. But other longer titles with the other font do work. Anyway, the point is that he designed it to end all wars. And I have some information because in my previous broadcast it occurred to me that the most important reason to prevent World War III is scalar technology. In reality, the scalar weapons have made nuclear weapons obsolete. And it's possible that if there would be a world war, that none without a Tesla plasma shield would survive. So this is the real reason to prevent World War III, to prevent mutually assured destruction. There would be no winners in a third world war. Not even people in underground cities could survive if they don't have a Tesla plasma shield. And there are 15 scalar weapon countries. So we can be very happy that Trump didn't go ahead with the attack on Iran, because Russia is an ally of Iran. And they wouldn't have sit back and done nothing. So that's my previous broadcast. US drone shot down and cancer oil tanker attacked equals no good reason for World War III. None. Streamed today, a couple of minutes ago. Don't bomb Iran nuclear enrichment facilities if no agreement with Putin. Prevent World War III. World War III UN officials. US planning a quote tactical assault in Iran. Jerusalem Post article review. World War III prevent bombing of Iran's nuclear facilities. Rouhani should halt enrichment until July 7th. That's the date when the agreement with the other countries, the nuclear agreement between Iran and the other countries, could end, unless they come with a different proposal. Okay, I've collected some information about this, because even a doomsday cult called 𝓮𝓰𝓮𝓲𝓪, after that they were called Aleph, have had access to this scalar technology. And I'm just going to read this first. I have to restart the text-to-speech engine. They may sabotage everything relating to this, because they want to be the only ones to reduce the global population to 500 million and enslave humanity with it. So the Jesuits are in control of these intelligence agencies, and all these intelligence agencies are Masonic, according to Citizens Action Network. And let's see if it can read this now.
NBCD Nuclear Biological Chemical Directed Energy Weapons. How can they leave out directed energy weapons? Nuclear, biological and chemical, NBC, weapons are often topic of discussion, and there are thousands of articles about NBC weapons of mass destruction, but scalar weapons which have made nuclear weapons obsolete. The vegetarian Nikola Tesla's death ray created to end all wars. Scalar weapons and directed energy weapons are left out, though there was a doomsday cult called 𝓮𝓮𝓰𝓮𝓲, later 𝓮𝓮𝓰𝓮𝓪𝓼, which leased a scalar weapon of the Russian FSB, formerly KGB. A representative of the ITS told Senate investigators that OM's interest focused on Tesla's experiments with resonating frequencies, in connection with artificially creating earthquakes. Significantly, the report also states that Tesla claimed with his technology he could split the world in two. biblioteka.net/Tesla/ISP_Tesla_7a.htm. Yakuza acquisition of Soviet superweapons 𝓼.org. At the end of 1989, the Soviet Union was collapsed and needed money badly. So they leased some of the scalar interferometers to a rogue Japanese group consisting of the Yakuza and the 𝓮𝓮𝓰𝓮𝓲𝓪 cult for a down payment of $900 million in gold bullion and an estimated yearly payment of $1 billion. After much training, in 1990 the rogue Japanese teams began operating the leased interferometers worldwide for weather engineering and other purposes under the supervision of the FSB, KGB. The Yakuza and its vast resources worldwide were thus incorporated into the FSB, KGB planning and coordination for the coming destruction of the United States and the Western world. Much later, Western investigations into the 𝓮𝓮𝓰𝓮𝓲𝓪 did clearly establish the sex links in Russia, but missed the major involvement of the Yakuza. In 1997, again the US would have been utterly destroyed on two occasions had it not been for the same little nation. Several professional colleagues and I played a desperate role in both of those frighteningly real incidents, which were never reported in the news media. Indeed, our own intelligence agencies had no inkling that a full strategic Soviet superweapon attack to destroy the United States was imminent on each of the occasions, the second of which would have occurred on May 1, 1997. 8. The May Day attack for 1997 would have been the big one, had the Federal Security Service, FSB/KGB, not been checkmated by an offer it could not refuse, delivered once again by the friendly nation. During those critical periods when every hour on the clock seemed a week in length, the hostile armada that would have struck us included the Japanese Yakuza and 𝓮𝓮𝓰𝓮𝓲𝓪 teams on site in Russia, operating leased KGB, FSB strategic scalar interferometers against the US. The Soviets easily made it appear that contact of the 𝓮𝓮𝓰𝓮𝓲𝓪 with Russia had been harmless, with the exception of the sarin nerve gas. So it was that in early 1990, the FSB, KGB transferred their North American weather engineering operation to the Yakuza, 𝓮𝓮𝓰𝓮𝓲𝓪 teams, who perpetuated it using the Russian scalar interferometers that the Yakuza had leased. Today the rogue Japanese teams on site in Russia and elsewhere continue their weather engineering against the United States under FSB, KGB supervision. pralad.org/pub/bearden/oblivion part01.htm. Wikipedia lists 4 types of weapons of mass destruction: nuclear, biological, chemical and radiological. Radiological is nuclear. Why would they list that twice? NBCD, directed energy weapons do. NBCE, electronic weapons. NBCE is used for nuclear, biological, and chemical element to hide electronic weapons of mass destruction. Tesla's death ray. John George Trump, August 21, 1907, February 21, 1985, was an American electrical engineer, inventor, and physicist. He was the paternal uncle of Donald Trump, who would later go on to become the 45th President of the United States. In 1943, as the technical aide in Division 14 of the NDRC, Trump reviewed and analyzed the papers of Nikola Tesla when the inventor died in a New York City hotel. The research was completed on behalf of the Alien Property Custodian Office in Washington, D.C. From February 1944 to the end of the war in Europe, Trump was the director of the BBRL.
So yeah, I've covered these scalar patterns in a separate broadcast, so perhaps we can celebrate. World War III fears surge as US quote comes within hours of bombing Iran. Trump reportedly revokes decision to bomb Iran. So it's also the headline in the NRC, the Dutch newspaper, and it's possible he prevented World War III, that I would have drowned on Sunday the 23rd. However, the danger is not subsided yet. I mean, they may have planned this Third World War also to build a third temple, and though it's an insane idea, of course, it can still be true. I mean, the uranium babies are real, and so is the remote torture technology and some other horrible things they've done, the demolition of the WTC, for example. And the Jesuits and Masons are supposedly in control of this technology. I listed 7 people. I listed 7 people that have possibly attacked me with directed energy weapons. List of possible directed energy weapon tortures. So we can read this again then. So the problem is I can't know if it's a neural network or a person, but I would think it's a Dutch-speaking male, because the person laughed sadistically while doing the torture, several types of torture. And they enjoyed it enormously, but that can also be religiously programmed into these people.
List of possible directed energy weapon torturers. Suspects. 1. AIVD. Based on the theory that this advanced directed energy weapon torture can only be done by intelligence agencies with access to directed energy weapons this advanced, and the fact that the directed energy weapon torturer's illegal voice-to-skull messages are in Dutch, the AIVD is the most likely group of people that did the directed energy weapon torture to me. However, because the directed energy weapon torture is possibly done using a neural network that can speak any language and simulate any person with synthetic telepathy technology, METHYLCOBALAMIN patent, apparatus for remotely monitoring and altering brain waves, it is possible NSA, FSB, MI6, Mossad or other intelligence agency is responsible. 2. NSA. Based on what is written about synthetic telepathy and directed energy weapon torture capabilities, that NASA is the only agency with synthetic telepathy capability, algorithms to decode the human brainwave. It is possible only NASA could have done the dental torture to me, remotely tortured my mother to death, and has the ability to control hybrid insects, DARPA's HIMEMS, remotely. 3. The Jesuits. Based on the information provided by Citizens Action Network on Facebook, all the intelligence agencies in the world are Masonic and controlled by the leader of the Jesuits, and at the time of the torture their leader was Peter Hans Kaltenbach, during Bush era, and Adolfo Nicholas. 4. George W. Bush. The torture started in the Bush era and I protested against Bush and against the war in the Middle East. I accused Bush of treason and photoshopped an image of Bush on the electric chair and was extremely negative about Skull and Bones. 5. Kissinger and other people that want to reduce the world's global population that I listed on my web pages and attempted to press charges against for incitement to commit genocide could very well have felt it as a personal attack and may have attacked me. The rich bankers Rothschild and Rockefeller may have connections or may even have constructed their own directed energy weapon. When something is patented, you may build the device for yourself, but you may not derive any financial benefit from it, you may not sell it. 6. MI6. According to sources online, MI6 is even more advanced than NASA and the most advanced intelligence agency. 7. Someone or a group not listed by me could, theoretically, build the same technology since the patents are online. The names of the individuals most likely to be responsible for the directed energy weapon torture from the top of my head: George Bush, Kissinger, one of the other people I listed as depopulators, the Dutch King Willem-Alexander, Bill Gates, Rothschild, Rockefeller, Peter Hans Kaltenbach, Adolfo Nicholas. Bill Gates is also a Bilderberg member I have criticized for his plans to reduce the global population. George Soros was not covered by me in the time period I was tortured. Groups most likely involved in the directed energy weapon torture: Jesuits, Freemasons. All Freemasons are Luciferians. See a Luciferian oath. Skull and Bones, Bilderberg Knights of Malta. The people that tortured me are ultra-sadistic supercriminals, and the police, military and judges work for them since they can remotely torture them and their families to death in cases their mind control is not sufficient to control them completely. Freemasons have infiltrated societies around the world. Their names are mostly unknown, and FreemasonryWatch.org and many other people expose the Masons and NASA Freemasons on their great websites.
So some people think Tesla was killed, they've stolen his technology. There are recordings of Houdini's voice. He lived long before Nikola Tesla, the electronic genius. So then it would be weird if there would be no recordings of Nikola Tesla's voice. And the recording we find on YouTube is not Nikola Tesla himself. So the FBI has these records, LPs basically, of Nikola Tesla's voice recordings. And perhaps he's saying something they don't want us all to know about, involving time travel technology and scalar weapon technology. So theoretically you only need coils to bend light around the object to become invisible, for levitation, for teleportation, and to time travel. Time travel, teleportation, levitation, invisibility is all achieved with coils. And people can make a scalar coil at home to produce these healing scalar waves. And since I'm being murdered with these directed energy weapons, I think it's in the hands of evil people that have also tortured my mother to death, and the Jesuits. Cannibalism is also documented on other websites. And there may be satanic pedophiles that pretend to be Christians. According to many sources, their military order. So religion is part of their psychological warfare. And their goal may be that global government, Neuordnung, the Third Reich, Hitler also had in mind centralization, power to the pedo instead of power to the people or power to the peaceful. That's what it's about, a new world order, global government. And book quotes of people make clear they want to annihilate 7 billion people and rule the world from Jerusalem, basically. So that's that Loyola, St. Ignatius of Loyola, founder of the Jesuits' coat of arms with the witch's cauldron and the wolves dancing around it, so they see themselves as wolves and the people as the sheep, basically. And that's the dehumanization part of the 10 phases of genocide, which is usually perpetrated by governments. Also, democide is included with these types of genocide, and there are 10 phases. So I hope that Trump has an agreement with Putin. Let's see what. Okay. So that the world war cannot erupt if they take action qua Iran, which is not producing a nuclear weapon, and they don't have evidence that proves they even have one nuclear weapon, and they're signatories of the NPT, Non-Proliferation Treaty, UN member country. Iran is a UN member, and they are sovereign state, so they may not attack Iran without the approval, consent of Congress. They did that before. We saw what happened in Iraq, basically. So you have that War Powers Act, etc., AUMF, AUMF. So it has to do with the IRGC being declared a terrorist group. And I'm checking what the reason would be, basically. Okay, so here I have the Wikipedia article, wiki/Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the official army of Iran. And this is the part terrorist designation and sanctions and response to terrorist organization designation. So let's read that first then.
Terrorist designation and sanctions. See also, list of designated terrorist groups since April 15, 2019, the United States, who opposes the activities of SEPA, considers the IRGC as a terrorist organization. 110, which some top CIA and Pentagon officials reportedly opposed. 111, on 8 April, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu tweeted in Hebrew that America's terrorist designation was the fulfillment of another important request of mine. 112, this designation was criticized by a number of governments including Turkey, Iraq and China, as well as the Islamic Consultative Assembly, Iran's parliament, in which members wore IRGC uniforms in protest. 113-114, on April 29, 2019, United States Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense Michael Mulroy said Iran posed 5 threats. The first was Iran obtaining a nuclear weapon. The second was to maritime security in the Straits of Hormuz and the Bab al-Mandab, because a substantial portion of energy trade and commercial goods go through those areas. The third was because of their support to proxies and terrorist organizations, including Hezbollah in Lebanon and Syria, Houthis in Yemen, some al-Shabi in Iraq, and safe harboring senior al-Qaeda leaders in Iran. The fourth was Iranian-made ballistic missiles sent to Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen for use against Saudi Arabia and to Syria with Hezbollah to use against Israel. Cyber is the fifth threat and a growing concern. 115, 116, 117, he also said that the terrorist designation did not grant any additional authorities to the Department of Defense and that they were not asking for any. 118, the IRGC has never been designated as a terrorist organization by the United Nations, although the UNSCR 1929 had its assets frozen. This was lifted in 2016. In addition to the US, the United Kingdom, a fellow Security Council member, also calls to prescribe the IRGC as a terrorist group. 119, the European Union has already sanctions in place on the IRGC, though it is not designated as a terrorist group as such. 120-121, although Saudi Arabia and Bahrain already designated the IRGC as a terrorist organization. 122-123, several countries such as Canada and Australia are examining the possibility to designate the group as well. Canada already.
So what about the use of depleted uranium, which is a war crime by the Department of Defense and others? Should they also be designated as terror groups, terrorist organizations by the UN and others?
Outlawed Quds Force in 2012. 124-125, response to terrorist organization designation. The move was met with unfavorable reactions from Iranian leaders and militants. 126, shortly after the U.S. announced the designation, the Iranian government declared the United States Central Command, whose area of responsibility includes the Middle East, as a terrorist organization. 127, according to Iran's Supreme National Security Council, the move was in response to the illegal and unwise move from the U.S. 127. On the following day, Iranian members of parliament displayed their support of the IRGC by collectively wearing green military pants and chanted "Death to America" as they opened session. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani also responded to the move, commenting that it was a mistake which would only increase the IRGC's popularity in Iran and elsewhere. 127, country, organization date, Bahrain October 23, 2018. 122, Saudi Arabia, United States April 15, 2019. 110.
So what's that thing with these three countries? Are these the countries that accept the idea that they are a terror group or something, or? Saudi, Bahrain and Iran's Revolutionary Guards to terrorism lists. Shouldn't it be ads? IRGC to terrorism lists. US, well, basically Trump officially designates Iran's Revolutionary Guards a terrorist group, not the US. So I think they should just mention names of people that are responsible so that they don't see the whole US or Iran as a demon, basically. Dehumanization is part of these 10 phases of genocide, and with mutually assured destruction around the corner that needs to be prevented. So if you ask me, mutually assured destruction has only become realer because of the Tesla technology and rather the abuse of the Tesla technology, which I'm convinced of because of the dental torture and the fact that they've slowly tortured my mother to death so they can clone disease patterns, is described in the 12 Things You Should Know About Scalar Weapons by Christy Verismo. I'm not going to cover the patent in this broadcast. This is just about preventing a world war and creating universal peace. So remember, they're always the ones to tell you who your enemies are and they're never the ones to fight and to die. And remember not to let them play you out against your loved ones and other people. That's the way they get rid of their enemies. They play them out against each other and their military order, and they can use remote torture technology and synthetic telepathy, alter people's brainwaves. So in combination with hypnosis, they can control people like remotely controlled robots to a certain extent. Already they've had synthetic telepathy since 1974. And perhaps it's better to look at an inspirational Tesla picture of Nikola Tesla. I made this with a picture from some website. Tesla color photo. So people have colored in the black and white Tesla picture, perhaps, or was this really a color photo? I think not. I think it's colored in with Photoshop, done well. And I basically extended the wall so it was not 720p. So with a freeware version of Photoshop called the GIMP, I edited the picture to make it look better, because he was a vegetarian. And I'm the channel Try Something.Vegetarian on YouTube. They may have a neural network that can simulate Tesla to a certain extent. But I doubt if he's still alive somewhere, and we could all communicate with him about creating a perfect society and controlling all factors that control aging. But if time is energy, perhaps one day he will be resurrected as well. So that's E equals delta Tc squared, better than Einstein's E equals mc squared. And also thought of the Einstein quote, I don't know what World War III will be fought with, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones, indicating that they can blow themselves up, and according to Tesla, even split the Earth in twain, if that's really a Tesla quote, which I haven't verified yet, but that's possible. They have lots of these ionospheric heaters. So what else can I add that would create a better timeline? Let's read this 𝓭𝓮𝓪𝓼 article. Here's the article.
I'm in no hurry to bomb Iran, Trump 43 AFP. The U.S. president says he stopped a proposed airstrike against the country 10 minutes before it happened after hearing it would kill 150 people. President Donald Trump said Friday he is in no hurry to bomb Iran, revealing that U.S. forces were cocked and loaded but that he called them back with minutes to go in order to avoid mass casualties. I am in no hurry, Trump said in a series of tweets detailing his thought process during the late Thursday decision to send, then recall U.S. forces meant to retaliate for the downing by Iran of a U.S. spy drone. 10 minutes before the strike I stopped it, the president said, explaining that a general had told him to expect 150 deaths on the Iranian side and that he had concluded this would not be a proportionate response. Dubai-based airline Emirates Airlines said Friday it rerouted flights to avoid areas of possible conflict, a day after Iran shot down a U.S. reconnaissance drone over the Strait of Hormuz. Some of the world's leading carriers, including British Airways, Qantas and Singapore Airlines, suspended flights over the strategic waterway amid escalating tensions between Washington and Tehran. In light of the current situation, Emirates has taken precautionary measures including rerouting all flights away from areas of possible conflict, a spokesperson for the airline said. We are carefully monitoring the ongoing developments and are in close contact with the relevant government authorities with regards to our flight operations, and will make further operational changes if the need arises. The suspensions came after the Federal Aviation Administration in the United States issued a notice to airmen, 𝓲𝓬𝓪𝓷, prohibiting U.S. registered aircraft from operating over the Persian Gulf and Gulf of Oman. Abu Dhabi-based Etihad Airways said on Friday it was carefully monitoring the situation and that contingency plans are in place. Meanwhile, Dubai's low-cost carrier FlyDubai said it adjusted some of the existing flight paths in the region as a precautionary measure. The 𝓲𝓬𝓪𝓷 was in response to heightened military activities and increased political tensions that might place commercial flights at risk, a statement said, as Tehran and Washington engaged in a war of words over Thursday's missile strike on the drone. Iran's downing of the drone, which Washington insists was above international waters but Iran says was within its airspace, has seen tensions between the two countries spike further after a series of attacks on tankers blamed by the U.S. on Tehran. TeslaUniverse.com. A famous inventor, picturing life 100 years from now, reveals an astounding scientific venture which he believes will change the course of history. Editor's note: Nikola Tesla, now in his 78th year, has been called the father of radio, television, power transmission, the induction motor, and the robot, and the discoverer of the cosmic ray. Recently he has announced a heretofore unknown source of energy present everywhere in unlimited amounts, and he is now working upon a device which he believes will make war impracticable. If no country can be attacked successfully, there can be no purpose in war. IMC.org. Feature: Tesla's superweapon - the machine to end all war. In 1940, at the annual press conference he held on his birthday, an 84-year-old Tesla offered his superweapon to the United States, but again there was limited interest, and Tesla's machine to end all war never came to fruition. Some conspiracy theorists maintain that the Teleforce does exist, and that it was used by the USSR to sabotage the American space program by bringing down the space shuttle Columbia. What links Nikola Tesla, Donald Trump and an electromagnetic death ray? On 7th of January, 1943, Serbian inventor and engineer Nikola Tesla was found dead in his room at the Wyndham New Yorker Hotel. Today, the multi-billion-dollar electric vehicle company means the Tesla name is synonymous with success. The firm's accomplishments have also helped gain posthumous recognition for the inventor, who held around 300 patents and worked on the first motor to run AC current as well as the technology for long-distance wireless communications. But when Tesla died, 75 years ago this week, he was 86, alone and virtually penniless, After a frustrating career where many of his ideas seemed to have arrived too soon, or took off after he'd given up the patents.
So basically this is the website Institution of Mechanical Engineers, imech.org, IMESH, that's Institution of Mechanical Engineers. That reminded me of John George Trump, who was an American electrical engineer, inventor and physicist, paternal uncle of Donald Trump, and he reviewed and analyzed the papers of Nikola Tesla when the inventor died in a New York City hotel. And then there's the book 1900 or The Last President, and Baron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey by Ingersoll Lockwood, written in 1893. So what do you all think about that?
Despite that, his personal.
And basically sometimes you can also hear the perpetrators laugh via me. It's like they're sort of merged with our body, basically.
Possessions were of great interest to the U.S. authorities, because Tesla had been working on a defensive weapon that he believed could bring an end to all war. Nothing can resist, he called the device Teleforce, but it was usually referred to in the newspapers as either the Peace Ray, or the Death Ray. It was inspired by the Van de Graaff generator, and would have worked by accelerating slugs of material to a high speed using electrostatic repulsion, and then firing them through nozzles at the target. Describing the device in 1937, Tesla claimed it could be used to stop a fleet of 10,000 enemy airplanes at a distance of 200 miles.
So it's basically the Wardenclyffe Tower, and that thing's real, and you have all these ionospheric heaters, punching holes in the Earth's ionosphere, and these are used for geoengineering and other secret projects, so they don't, basically they lie to people and pretend that it doesn't exist. Because they also do that remote torture with it and synthetic telepathy, and they want to keep that secret, so that nobody knows their minds are scanned. They're not just spying on your cancer cell phones and emails, like I always say, to maintain an advantage over the population and to use it to their own advantage, not to the benefit of humanity as a whole.
My apparatus projects particles which may be relatively large or of microscopic dimensions, enabling us to convey to a small area at a great distance trillions of times more energy than is possible with rays of any kind, he said. Many thousands of horsepower can thus be transmitted by a stream thinner than a hair, so that nothing can resist. It would, he said, stop armies dead in their tracks and bring an end to war, because no country with such a powerful defensive weapon could be successfully attacked. In an era of global warfare, when the citizens of cities such as Paris and London were terrified of aerial bombardment from the new generation of fighter planes, it was a tantalizing prospect. However, as with many of his inventions, Tesla had difficulty finding anyone interested in funding it. In 1934, he tried to get money from Jack Morgan, son of dominant American financier J.P. Morgan. The following year, he sold detailed plans and specifications to the Soviet Union for $25,000. By 1937, the world was on the brink of war, and Tesla offered the device to Britain at a price of $30 million, but they dropped all interest by the following year. Someone was interested though. One U.S. diplomat reacted with alarm at the prospect of Tesla hawking a potential superweapon to the highest bidder, and the inventor claimed that a number of efforts to steal the invention had been made, with thieves breaking into his room and going through his papers. He remained convinced of its potential until the end of his life. I do not say that there may not be several destructive wars before the world accepts my gift, he wrote. I may not live to see its acceptance, but I am convinced that a century from now every nation will render itself immune from attack by my device or by a device based upon a similar principle. In 1940, at the annual press conference he held on his birthday, an 84-year-old Tesla offered his super weapon to the United States, but again there was limited interest, and Tesla's machine to end all war never came to fruition. Family connection. A quirk of history has only served to add fuel to the fire. When Tesla passed away of a suspected coronary thrombosis, the FBI asked an MIT professor of electrical engineering to go through his papers to see if any secrets, including the teleforce, could be unlocked. The scientist found nothing of practical use. He wrote that Tesla's thoughts and efforts during at least the past 15 years were primarily of a speculative, philosophical and somewhat promotional character, and did not include new, sound, workable principles or methods for realizing such results. 75 years after his death, Tesla's name lives on in an increasingly electrified world, where cities are powered by AC current, and vehicles bear his name. Although his super weapon was never built, it continues to be a source of fascination, and perhaps fear. Some conspiracy theorists maintain that the teleforce does exist, and that
Well, if it's the Wardenclyffe Tower, they definitely built that, and the ionospheric heaters are definitely real as well. And scalar technology is the Möbius coil, basically. It's covered in my previous broadcasts about the scalar patterns, also recently released by the CIA. Material, new, not patents, but formerly classified material about scalar technology.
it was used by the USSR to sabotage the American space program by bringing down the space shuttle Columbia. In a quirk of history, the identity of the scientist who combed through Tesla's papers only served to add fuel to the fire. His name was John G. Trump, the uncle of the current President of the United States. Content published by Professional Engineering does not necessarily represent the views of the Institution of Mechanical Engineers. HEALTHIEST.com/Nikola Tesla Facts. One of 23, he was born during a lightning storm. Nikola Tesla was born on July 10, 1856 in Smiljan, Croatia, reportedly in the midst of a lightning storm, perhaps foreshadowing his future obsession with electricity. According to family legend, a midwife claimed that this bad omen destined him to be a child of the dark, to which his mother replied, "Number, he will be a child of light." Pictured, Tesla's birth certificate. Wikimedia Commons.
They're either practicing or something is happening. Don't know if it's the 𝓭𝓮𝓪𝓼. But let's read on. So this is a live broadcast of the 21st of June, Friday, 8 o'clock. So, my father is coming up with dinner, and it means that I'm gonna end this broadcast in a minute. Let's read on a bit more.
One of 23, he was born during a lightning storm. Nikola Tesla was born on July 10, 1856 in Smiljan, Croatia, reported. He was born during a lightning storm. Nikola Tesla was born on July 10, 1856 in Smiljan, Croatia, reportedly in the midst of a lightning storm, perhaps foreshadowing his future obsession with electricity. According to family legend, a midwife claimed that this bad omen destined him to be a child of the dark, to which his mother replied, "Number, he will be a child of light." Pictured, Tesla's birth certificate 𝓥𝓮𝓰𝓮𝓪𝓼 2 of 23. He wasn't the only inventor in his family. Tesla's mother sparked his interest in inventing early on. Tesla once wrote, "My mother was an inventor of the first order and would, I believe, have achieved great things had she not been so remote from modern life and its multifold opportunities. She invented and constructed all kinds of tools and devices and wove the finest designs from thread which was spun by her.
So, sorry to keep you waiting, but there's the Dutch 𝓭𝓮𝓰𝓲 that's right in front of our house. And usually I try to film it, and this year I have it from the beginning basically. I used to walk in the 𝓭𝓮𝓰𝓲 myself, of course. So I remember the lemon and sugar that we used to take along. Oh, I can show my father my new chessboard. But I'm gonna have to have dinner. Did I stop streaming? I didn't stop streaming, sorry. So let's read a bit further until my father comes up with dinner. So basically, to get the whole video I had to run. I couldn't wait. And this broadcast is over an hour, so I can't edit it with the YouTube editing thing. I could upload it in 2 halves, but then I might as well leave this online. People can view forward, they can fast forward, and it's kind of peaceful when there's no sound coming out of the speakers.
He was born during a lightning storm. Nikola Tesla was born on July 10, 1856 in Smiljan, Croatia.
Okay, I really copied this text and I selected this to read it out.
He wasn't the only inventor in his family. Tesla's mother sparked his interest in inventing early on. Tesla once wrote, "My mother was an inventor of the first order and would, I believe, have achieved great things had she not been so remote from modern life and its multifold opportunities. She invented and constructed all kinds of tools and devices and wove the finest designs from thread which was spun by her." He almost became a priest. Tesla's father, Milutin, pictured, was an Eastern Orthodox priest who originally planned for his son to follow in his footsteps and go into the priesthood, but during Tesla's battle with cholera, Milutin conceded and promised to grant his son's wish and send him to engineering school should he recover, which he soon did. He dodged the draft in 1874. Tesla, still recovering from his bout of cholera, was about to begin at Austrian Polytechnic when war broke out between the Austrian and Turkish empires. His father encouraged him to hide in the mountains to avoid the draft and convalesce. For the next 3 years, Tesla lived in the mountainous forests of Croatia and grew closer to nature as he recuperated. He had a strange relationship with pigeons later in life. Tesla developed an intense fondness for pigeons and would frequently feed them at the park. In fact, after he grew too ill to feed them himself, he hired others to do it for him. He would even bring sick or injured pigeons back to the hotel where he lived in his later years, and nurse them back to health. He grew especially fond of one little bird, and said this about her: "I loved that pigeon as a man loves a woman, and she loved me. As long as I had her, there was a purpose to my life." He believed that women would become superior to men in the future. In a 1926 interview, Tesla explained his belief that women would one day reign superior over men and that this would lead to a society closer to that of a beehive, which he saw as the ideal model. He was voluntarily chaste. Tesla avoided romance and never married, instead having only platonic relationships with women, including famous actress Sarah Bernhardt, pictured. He often expressed his belief that romantic relationships limited his ability to invent, even saying, "I do not think you can name many great inventions that have been made by married men." He suffered from a severe fear of pearls. Unable to tolerate even the sight of a pearl, Tesla once sent his secretary home to change after she showed up to work donning a strand of his much-hated spheres. This is one of many traits, such as being obsessed with the number 3 and being extremely wary of germs, that have given many cause to believe that Tesla suffered from a form of obsessive-compulsive disorder. He supported eugenics. Tesla was a proponent of eugenics throughout his life. He lived in the major era of American eugenics and supported the practice of sterilizing undesirables. Later in life, he was even close friends with German-American journalist George Sylvester Viereck, who worked as a propagandist for the Nazis. He rarely ever slept. Tesla claimed to only sleep 2 hours per night, and was prone to spending 2 days or more in his laboratory without sleeping at all. Kenneth Swezey, one of Tesla's friends, confirmed these claims. He cured Mark Twain's constipation. Tesla was close friends with legendary author Mark Twain, whose work he first grew to read and admire while bedridden with cholera in his youth. Later, when Tesla moved to America, he and Twain became fast friends. Twain suffered from constipation his whole life, and complained about it frequently. In order to alleviate his friend's suffering, Tesla suggested that Twain use one of his inventions, a vibrating, oscillating, metal disc to help with his problem by shaking things loose. Reportedly, the treatment was perhaps too successful, and caused Twain to immediately void his bowels. He designed a death ray in the 1930s. Tesla conceived of a plan for a death ray, a particle beam, directed energy weapon that he named Teleforce. Describing the weapon in 1934, Tesla stated, "The nozzle would send concentrated beams of particles through the free air, of such tremendous energy that they will bring down a fleet of 10,000 enemy airplanes at a distance of 200 miles from a defending nation's border and will cause armies to drop dead in their tracks." The nozzle would send concentrated beams of particles through the free air, of such tremendous energy that they will bring down a fleet of 10,000 enemy airplanes at a distance of 200 miles from a defending nation's border and will cause armies to drop dead in their tracks. He had a photographic memory. Tesla had the ability to read text while simultaneously committing it to memory, which served him well. He used all the information he soaked up as an internal library, to be available at his beck and call. As a result, Tesla rarely made drawings of his inventions, but instead worked merely from an image or memory within his own head. He designed a wireless communication device, in 1901 attempting to make good on his idea to craft a handheld device that could receive stock quotes and telegram messages via encoded and broadcasted frequencies. Tesla went on to design the very first wireless transmission tower and had it erected in Long Island, New York, along with a laboratory facility, Wardenclyffe Tower, so named after its main investor, James S. Warden, was meant for transatlantic wireless telephony and broadcasting, but it was never fully functional, and was therefore demolished in 1917. He was born during a lightning storm. Nikola Tesla was born on July 10, 1856 in Smiljan, Croatia, reportedly in the midst of a lightning storm. He was an environmentalist far ahead of his time. An early proponent of environmentalism, Tesla sought to harness clean energy from the earth and worried about the effects of non-renewable energy sources. He was also friends with famous naturalist John Muir, one of the leading voices behind the establishment of the U.S. National Park Service. He spoke 8 languages, no doubt hastened by his eidetic, commonly known as photographic, memory. Tesla was fluent in 8 different languages: Serbo-Croatian, English, Czech, German, French, Hungarian, Italian, and Latin. Linguists refer to such a person as a hyperpolyglot. He was a vegetarian later in his life. Tesla became a vegetarian, cutting meat and then eventually fish entirely out of his diet. Tesla believed that the production of meat was inefficient and unhealthy, and that, in the future, food sources would mainly be milk and vegetables. However, he continued to progress with this idea until he was on an entirely liquid diet, leading some biographers to believe that his behavior was his way of rationalizing an eating disorder that he was suffering from.
Or perhaps he was ahead of his time with a liquid diet, juicing. But if you go vegan or vegetarian, you have to make sure you get enough vitamin B12. Only then it's healthiest to be vegan or vegetarian, because eating animal protein and especially animal fat increases your cancer risk. There's a documentary, What the Health, on Vimeo that people can watch, and so that's one of the main reasons people become vegetarian. You could argue these animals still die if we don't control factors that control aging yet. So basically I do have some leather shoes and leather belt, though I'm trying to avoid these products. So most of what I have is made with nylon and other materials that are vegetarian. My current shoes, I guess. I'd have to check, I don't even know. But it's especially the inhumane conditions in the bio industry that have to be, I think there have to be laws have to be made so that animals have decent amount of living space, and so that they are not treated cruelly, because they are life forms and they are pretty close to us. We are also energy, everything is energy, so everything is possible. it's possible that all or most people in our future will be vegetarian. And I think the amount of cannibals on our planet has drastically gone down. And the amount of cadaver eaters is still decreasing because people are finding out the truth. And the billion-dollar meat industry, of course, tries to put out lies to keep people in that vicious circle, addicted to the cancer-causing cadavers, cancer-causing cancer cow meat, and up to 16 kilograms of grain are needed to produce 1 kilogram of cancer hormone cow meat. So that's why the world's hunger problem would be solved if everybody would become vegetarian. And about 11 children die every minute of starvation, though 14 children are born every minute. So some people are worried that we could become overpopulated, but in reality, at the moment, there's 7.5 billion people and everybody would fit into Australia, have more than enough to eat and their own piece of land if they divide the Earth's wealth equally among men. And that's the video, How to Beat the New World Order, on YouTube. So there may be others that are covering that now. But let's read some more about Tesla on allthat'sinteresting.com.
He invented the first hydroelectric power plant in 1895, along with American engineer George Westinghouse. Tesla built the first power plant to tap the hydroelectric potential of Niagara Falls, the completion of which marked the final victory of Tesla's polyphase alternating current, AC, electricity, which powers the world today. He died broke and alone in a sad, empty ending for a man filled to the brim with brilliance. Tesla died on January 7, 1943 from coronary thrombosis in the New Yorker hotel room that had served as his home for a decade. Though he sold his AC electrical patents, Tesla died in debt because he self-funded many of his own projects that never ended up seeing the light of day. He has adorned many types of Balkan currency because he was an ethnic Serb, born in Croatia, which at the time it was part of the Austrian Empire. Numerous nationalities have laid claim to Tesla, and used his likeness on their currency. He appeared on numerous denominations of Yugoslavian dinar notes when that nation existed, and is currently featured on Serbia's 100 dinar note.
So because I think most of you are not murderers, most of you are good people, and I think good people also are entitled to know these things, I share what I know about scalar technology and time travel, etc. in my broadcasts. It's like the Second Amendment, basically.
Not murderers.
That's my father in the background. We continue reading.
He now has a Silicon Valley statue that radiates free Wi-Fi. In 2013, a statue of Tesla was unveiled in downtown Palo Alto, California that functions as a free Wi-Fi hotspot. Along with the Wi-Fi, the statue contains a time capsule, including everyday items from 2013 as well as local kids' predictions about what Earth will look like in the future, to be opened in 2043. He invented many things that have remained classified upon his death. Most of Tesla's belongings were taken by the Office of Alien Property, even though he was a legal citizen of the United States. Some of Tesla's documents and papers still remain classified, and while people have requested items via the Freedom of Information Act, those items are heavily redacted before their release. As a result, people tend to wonder what else Nikola Tesla had up his sleeve, like perhaps a device that would lead to free energy, before his death.
Okay, so that's it for now.
Okay.
Sorry about the interruption. Please share, like, and subscribe. And share on your timeline by pushing this button if you think it's good for our timeline for our future. And do stuff to create universal peace. We will, in the next broadcast, try something.Vegetarian.